young cancer patient Dylan Jeffs led campaigners to No. 10 Downing Street on Tuesday to call for support with hospital travel costs. The brave 5-year-old knocked on Rishi Sunak's door to deliver a petition carrying more than 11,000 signatures. He was joined by lymphoma survivor Victoria Jones, 23, and representatives from Young Lives vs. Cancer. The charity is urging the government to create a fund for cancer patients aged up to 25 to ensure they can afford to travel for care. Its research suggests families spend an average of £250 per month on costs including petrol, congestion charges, public transport and taxis, while typically travelling 350 miles to hospital. Dylan, from Birmingham, was diagnosed 2 years ago and visits Birmingham Children's Hospital at least once a week. His trips were more frequent while undergoing chemotherapy, costing his parents Rachel and Russell around £200 in fuel every month. Rachel said, "Other things have to take a back seat. There might be days out or holidays that we can't afford because that budget is taken up by travel costs. There are other things like he was wetting the bed more, so we needed more bed sheets, the washing machine was on more. He was on steroids so was eating more food. And then there are the travel costs on top of that." Dylan is now stable and going through maintenance treatment, which he is due to finish in April. Rachel added, "This is so important. It's not just us, there are other families going through this. Something so simple that can make that journey a little easier, a bit of money from the government to help with travel, would make a difference." When prison officer Victoria was diagnosed 2 years ago, she discovered she would have to travel from her home on the Isle of Wight to Southampton for treatment. She underwent 8 cycles of grueling chemotherapy and 3 weeks of radiotherapy, requiring 20 ferry trips. Each crossing cost upwards of £200 and Victoria struggled to afford the tickets, eventually having to leave her rented flat and skip meals. She said, "I just couldn't find the money. It was either have the life-saving treatment or keep the roof over my head. There were countless times when I considered just stopping my treatments. I went into hospital one day and just completely broke down. I said, I can't cope with this anymore, I just want to stop it. I'll take my chances and get my finances in order so my partner doesn't have to deal with it when I'm gone." Victoria was supported by a social worker Kate Wheeler from Young Lives vs. Cancer, who helped her access grants to help keep her head above water. But the experience has left her determined to ensure other young patients do not continue to struggle. Victoria added that going through treatment meant watching your body fall apart. She said, "You lose your hair. I was on steroids so I gained weight. You're trying to cope with that, as well as the fact you feel horrendous, and then you've somehow got to scrape together money on top of that. It can be really isolating because you don't have money to go out for coffee with friends." Rachel Kirby-Ryder, chief executive at Young Lives vs. Cancer, said children often have to travel further than adult patients to receive treatment at specialist centers. She said, "The guiding principle of the NHS is that it is free at the point of use, but if you're having to spend hundreds of pounds to even get through the hospital door, then that principle is not working. We know families are having to pay £250 on average every month just to travel to treatment. We don't think that is right or acceptable, so we're asking the government to work alongside us to develop a young cancer patients travel fund so we can help support those families." A government spokesperson said, We know people are struggling, which is why we're bearing down on inflation and providing record financial support worth an average £3,300 per household. We are capping bus and rail fares, and people on low incomes can apply for help with their health costs through the NHS Low Income Scheme. Traveling to hospital shouldn't leave young people with cancer in debt, says Kate Wheeler as a Young Lives vs. Cancer social worker at Southampton Hospital. Every day I see just how much of an impact the cost of traveling to treatment can have on children and young people with cancer. Some have to cut back on food, others are in debt, and several young people have even considered stopping chemo altogether when financial struggles pushed them to the edge. In my 16 years supporting young people with cancer, I've never seen it so bad. Young Lives vs. Cancer is asking for a young cancer patient travel fund to help the 71% of young people and families struggling to afford travel to hospital get the support they need. On average, they are paying out £250 extra a month on things like fuel, congestion charges, taxis, fares and parking costs on top. All to get to hospital for vital treatment. In my role, I support young people between the ages of 16 to 25. They are mostly at school, uni or new to the working world. Many young people have to stop work and are put on statutory sick pay or universal credit, but they usually don't cover the financial commitments they already have: phone contract, car insurance, rent, let alone the added cost of travel. They don't have a pot of money to dip into, and many don't have family to fall back on financially either. They're often living to their means. Some can get their travel costs reimbursed, but they don't have the money up front to pay for it. Take Vic. At 21 she just started renting her first flat. She was managing rent and bills fine until a cancer diagnosis meant having to stop work and paying up to £200 on ferry tickets from Isle of Wight to Southampton Hospital, often multiple times a week. She had to move out and was struggling to make ends meet. Halfway through treatment things got so bad she considered stopping chemo. I managed to help with charity grants and made a special arrangement with the ferry company, but sadly these grants aren't enough to meet the basic things young people need to pay out for while on treatment. Young Lives vs. Cancer is calling for a young cancer patient travel fund because children and young people with cancer, like Vic, and their families deserve the financial support to make sure they can get to treatment. They deserve to not have to cut back on food or sell their possessions or go into debt because of travel costs. They deserve to focus on what matters, getting through treatment. Kate Wheeler is a Young Lives vs. Cancer social worker.